Hello everyone. Welcome to this quick guide on React, the JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So whether you are a beginner or looking to brush up your skills, well, this would be helpful to create a simple React project and getting up to speed with what React essentially is. So React is a declarative, efficient, and a flexible JavaScript library, for building your reusable UI components. It lets us create complex UIs from small and isolated pieces of code, which is called components. So here in the example that I provided you for the function video, so here it returns JSX, inside of which we have a particular component called thumbnail. So and like button. So these are custom components, and these are reusable components, which can be used and which can also be created based on the requirements of the project or and also the reusability is a big part of React, and combine this is used to combine screens, pages, and applications. So this is a small overview of what React is. Then the question comes, why do we use React? So the main objective of using React is to develop user interfaces, that improves the speed of the applications. So React uses a virtual DOM. It's a JavaScript object, so which improves the performance of the app. So the JavaScript DOM, virtual DOM, is faster than the actual regular DOM. So when the small actions that we implement on a web page, like clicking on a button, or getting updates on a form field, any interaction that the user has with the uh, web application. So usually without React, I mean, if you go back to the olden days, uh, the whole application used to reload, and this is a very expensive operation in terms of the in terms of the time that's being used and the the time taken to accomplish that particular task. So what React essentially does is it works on a virtual DOM. So we do have a virtual tree. As you can see here, in this particular example, we have a div, right? So instead of the div, we do have the A tags, and we do have the thumbnail component, and we do have the like button. So if we consider this particular fragment as an isolated piece of code, so for example, tomorrow, if you were to make a specific change for this particular component, for example, you've clicked on the like button, click the like here. Usually the operation is that to implement this particular state change, the whole application used to reload. So with React, we have this virtual DOM through which only this particular uh, uh, this particular piece of code is changed, and the state change is implemented in the virtual DOM. So we can use React on the client and server side, and this extensively and improves the performance of the application. So it uses the component and data patterns, and which can improve the readability, and this helps to maintain larger applications. So yeah, so what is React? So like I mentioned, React is a declarative, efficient, and a flexible JavaScript library for building reusable UI components. It is open source, and it's a component-based front-end library, which is responsible for the view layer of the application. So it was initially developed by Facebook in 2013 and is used in its products like WhatsApp and Instagram. So it's not just restricted to these two applications. In today's world, React is widely used by different applications as their view layer because of its universality of its the ease of use and the intuitive nature of the application of the framework as a whole. And we also have a React Native library, which is used predominantly to create mobile applications. So that is another a framework of React. So why do you use React? Like I mentioned, the main objective is to develop user interfaces, which improves the speed of the applications. So like I mentioned, virtual DOM is a very important part of React, which improves the performance of the application. So what are the features of React? So coming to the features of React, we have JSX, and we do have the components. There's one-way data binding, virtual DOM, the simplicity of the framework, and the performance. So coming to JSX, JSX stands for JavaScript XML. So it's a JavaScript syntax extension. So it is an XML or an HTML-like syntax used by React.js. So this syntax is processed into JavaScript calls for of React framework. So it kind of makes sure that HTML-like text can coexist with the JavaScript React code. Essentially in vanilla JavaScript projects, we do have the JS files, the HTML file, and the CSS files, all separated within within the project. So what JSX does is instead of a JavaScript function um, like this, instead of this function, you can return a complete HTML-like syntax. So this is JSX. You're incorporating HTML-like syntax instead of the JavaScript function. So this is one of the advantages of React. So you can implement what the view is going to be instead of the function. So it's pretty dynamic and gives the developer more control on how they can implement a particular component more effectively and efficiently. Coming to the second feature, it's the components. So like I mentioned, React is it's all about components. So React.js application is made up of multiple components, and each component has its own logic and controls. And the components, can be reused, and which can, help us maintain the code when you're working on large scale projects. So one reason why React is so popular and was so widely used is because of the reusability and scalability of these components. So for example, like the example that I provided you here, so as you can see, here we are implementing a thumbnail component, and we're also having a like button component. So if we were, and this is an isolated to one particular video, for example. So if we were to have multiple videos, the same component of thumbnail can be used multiple times. For example, if we have three videos, we can have three components, the three same thumbnail components, and the like button components as well. So that's the benefit of having components, the reusability and the scalability of those components. The third point is the one-way data binding. So React is designed in such a way, in such a manner that follows unidirectional data flow or one-way data binding. So the benefits of this one-way data binding is that it gives the developer a much better control throughout the application. So if the data flow is in another direction, or then it kind of requires additional features. So it's because components are supposed to be, immutable, and the data within them cannot be changed. So, so we so that is one of the reasons why one-day data binding is used in React. So we can see that there's a pattern called flux, so it keeps the data unidirectional, and it makes the application more flexible, and it leads to efficiencies. And the fourth point is virtual DOM. The virtual DOM, it's an object representative of the original DOM. So it works like a one-way data binding. So whenever any modifications happen in the web application, like I mentioned, like a click or some form fields, are updated based on user activities or the data coming from the backend. So the entire UI is re-rendered in virtual DOM representation, and then it checks the difference between the previous DOM representation and the new DOM. So once that has been done, the real DOM will update only the things that have actually changed. So like I previously mentioned that sometimes, only a particular component of the whole web page, is under a change. So the whole web page need not be, completely refreshed or re-rendered in DOM. So that's the reason we have virtual DOM, wherein all the re-rendering is taking place. So the real DOM, it'll only cross-check uh, the changes that have happened, and only the things which have been changed get updated. So this makes the application faster, and there's no wastage of memory. And the fifth point is simplicity. So like I mentioned, React.js uses JSX file, which makes the application very simple to use and code and as well as to understand. So we know that React.js is a component-based approach, which makes the code reusable as we need. So this makes it simple and easy to learn. So coming to performance, React.js is a very good performer, and it's much better suited in performance compared to other frameworks. And of course, we do have great new frameworks coming out like Next.js, and we also have Angular from Google. But comparatively on the universality and also the ease of use, the intuitiveness, and if someone were to start out on their first web development application, React would be a very good place to start because it creates this foundational knowledge, and it incorporates all the building blocks of web development, especially on the front end side. And uh, yeah, that's pretty much it for the React features. So coming for the example, um, let's first set up our environment. So what we can do is we'll start with creating a basic application, and let's get on with that. So let's create a basic application. So for that, let's set up the environment. To start with React, we'll need Node.js installed on our computers or on our personal machines. So if you have a Mac or a Windows, so it doesn't really matter. You need to have Visual Studio Code installed. So this is the IDE that I would recommend to any newcomers or beginners. This would give them a much better all-round experience. For web development or for web development. So after you start Visual Studio Code, you can just go to the terminal, start a new terminal, and all you can do is just type Node. So if Node is installed on your computer, it just says that, welcome to Node.js version so and so. So if it is not, I would suggest you to install Node. It's better that you go to the Node's website, Node.js installation, and you can just choose whatever OS that you're using, whether it's Windows, Mac, Linux. It's better to first download Node and then proceed with the uh, React development. So now that we've confirmed that we have Node installed in our computers, so let's start with the application creation. So let's create a new React project. So let me go to, so first let me see what all do I have. Uh, okay, so these are the files I have. So let me go to my documents. Inside documents, I do have a file called a folder called React projects. So let me go to the folder React projects, and here let me create a new application, React application, by typing npx create React app, my app. So this is the standard procedure that you need to follow to create a new React application. So this command npx and create React app, this initializes and creates a React app, downloads all the documentation of React, and it creates a project for you. And yeah, and my app is the name that I gave here. And you can give any name for your application, but for now I've given the name as my app. So let's go ahead and start it. So like, you're seeing that it's creating a new React application in this particular directory, and it's installing the packages and like create React DOM, React scripts. So that it's much easier for uh, React development. So now once and it takes a couple of minutes to do it ideally, but I think yeah. So let's wait. Okay, all right. I think everything is installed well. And as you can see, it's saying success, created my app at this particular directory. And inside the directory, we can run several commands like npm start, npm run build, npm test, and npm run eject. So for now, I think we would not need all these three, but what we need is npm start. So because this is what starts the development. So let's look at the directory. Okay, let's just open the folder, other documents, React projects, my app. I just open. Okay, so as we can see here, so there are a couple of folders and files that which are installed, which are for us here. So we can see node modules. So node modules are very important. So these are the standard packages, node packages, which are which are installed and are very basic and essential in creating React applications. So all of these are packaged and bundled together in this particular folder called node modules. And here we have the public folder in which we have the basic index.html, and we can delete all the other ones. We really don't need all of those. And index.html is very important because this is where our whole application is going to be rendered. And if we can see, just expand this. Okay, so this is the basic React HTML, and here everything that we're gonna render is going to be rendered here instead of this, instead of the body, instead of this div id.root. So this is where the whole rendering is going to take place. And in source, inside of source, we have the files for CSS, app.js. So this is where the rendering is taking place. So this is what this is what is being rendered. I'll just show you in a second. So if we start this application, so to start the application, all we have to do is we have to go to that folder where we have installed where our project is. So for example, so it's already inside the folder which is my app. So if it is not, all you can do is you will type cd and go to that particular folder wherever you are. So now that I'm inside of my folder, all I'm going to do is npm start. So it's running the development server, and yeah, as you can see, it compiled successfully, and it says it's you can view the my app in the browser, and this is the URL. So let's copy it here. Let's start it. There you are. So this, so we just seen this. Okay, what is this? Well, I haven't coded anything, but why we seeing this? It's because of this. So as you can see in the source, we see there is this app dot this is app function, and this function is returning something. If you can see, so but there's some text here which says edit source app.js and app.js and save to reload. As you can see, this is the text which is being rendered. Learn React, learn React. So this is what is being rendered, and how. So where is this? And here we are saying export default app. So we are exporting this app function, so as a component, but where are we exporting it to? So in React, what we're doing is we create components, we create functions, and we export them. So we then import these particular functions for our use, for our specific use cases. So for example, this index.js is where the root rendering is going to take place. So for example, we are first initializing our root. So how are we doing that? We are using React DOM. So React and React DOM are installed as packages when we're creating the React application. So that's that. So we are using React DOM dot create root, and we are getting the root element. So that is document dot get element by ID root. So why is this there by default? Well, it's not there by default. It's not pre-random. As I've shown you before, we already have this in our HTML, which is this dev ID root. So this, instead of this, is our whole application. Instead of this particular div, um, our whole application runs. So this is where the whole thing is. And so we've initialized it inside of root. And inside, and we're saying root.render. So we're seeing inside of this root, a render all of this. We're going to render app component. And for that, we're importing the app component from .app, which is app.js. So we're importing it. So that's the advantage of creating components. So we just created it, we exported it. And just because we need it, we're going to render it. Now, if I delete it, if I delete app from this, you really can't see anything. Bam, gone. If I put it back, it's back. React strict mode and report vitals, and these are not really important for now. So this is a basic understanding of what React is. So I think you would probably get an idea of what React is going to be. So as in we'll keep increasing the information that we can uh, you know create, or the data that the application that we can create through incremental steps. So first, let's study this app.js. So this is all there is. So what we can do is, so this is an A tag, as you can see, the learn React is an A tag. So there is a link. So if we click to it, if we click this particular link, we're going to react.dev. So it's what it's asking us. So react.org, so that was the old URL. So I think it redirects to react.dev right now. So let's remove all of this. For simplicity purposes, let's remove all of this. And so when I remove all of this, there is an error. Whoa, there is an error. It failed to compile. So the reason why it failed to compile is that it always, so when you're returning a function, it always expects uh, JSX tags. So we use something called fragments. So these are like placeholders. So this kind of when you're not returning anything, it is a convention to use fragments to signify that this is an empty component. So now we do not have any um, errors. We just have compilation warning. So yeah, so it's fresh. So what we can do now is, let's create a counter. Let's create a counter. So what we can do is, so like you understand, so by counter we can just create a particular uh, counter, and whenever we click on a particular button, the count has to increase. So let's work on that. So this example will kind of demonstrate the power of React's state management, and we'll start modifying the app.js to include a counter that increments every time we click the button. So the basics are, let's import React, use state from React. Okay. So instead of the function, we can create a state. So to create a state, what we can do is, we'll use const set count equals to set the use state to 0. So wow, we got errors here. Okay, so why did we get errors here? Okay, it's because instead of count, I said count. So React is very strict in terms of the any errors that we do. So we always have to be very conscious of what we're typing and how we're doing it. Yeah, that's fine. So here we're using the use state hook. So hooks are something used specifically for state management. So state is nothing but the data that we have inside of a particular React uh, application. So how the states are being used and how they are changing, it's a very important part of what uh, React application is. So in simple terms, I can say that a state is an updatable structure which is used to contain the data and information about the component. So the state in a component can change over time to time. So for example, uh, in this function on this component app, I've created a state called count. And if you realize that okay, some of the data in a particular or some of the information in a particular component is going to change through the user activity or the UI changes, we can use hooks like a use state hook to initialize a particular state and then update it over time. And and a component with a state is known as stateful component, and it is the heart of a React component, because it determines the behavior of the component and how it will render. So they're also responsible for making the component dynamic and interactive. So also another thing that you have to keep in mind is that a state has to be kept as simple as possible, and it can be set using the set state. So for now, all you're seeing here is use state. So use state is is just to show the initial state of that data of this particular value, which is for count, and I've initialized it to 0. So what how so we're going to increment it through user activity. So that is the reason we're going to initialize this by 0 first, and through user activity, user interaction, we're going to update the state dynamically. So yeah, so let's start creating a counter. So now that we've initialized the state, let's create JSX for it. So we do have the div, and let's create an h2 of counter. And in this counter, let's display the count. So this count would be increasing, would increment every time we click a button. So let's have a button, and so we have this button tags, and instead of that, I'll say on click. So on click is a property, so which is that which is it's a property which which is used to specify what happens to this particular tag, or what happens when you click a particular button. So let's implement it. So on click, what we can do is we're going to set the count. Like I mentioned, we can set state or set count, because now we've so this is the variable and this is the function. So what we're going to do here is, as a set count, we'll say the count increases by 1. So okay, so let's name this as increment count. So now you can see now you can see that this whole component has been rendered, and it has been compiled successfully. So let's click. So before we click, let's inspect what's happening, and also console log what's happening. It's and as a beginner, and it's very essential to have console as to log the each and every step as much as possible so that you understand what's happening internally and how it all works. Let's console log the count. Let's say count, yes, and yeah. So let's go to the console here. Okay. So as you see, um, I haven't clicked anything. I haven't done anything. The counter is 0. I haven't done anything. It's just that I've refreshed the page, and you can see that I'm also displaying the console log here in the console. So that is because when you're first rendering the application, the app here inside of index.js, the whole function or the whole component is getting, um, you know, uh, rendered before. So just a second, I'll create another console log. And this helps you to understand this in a much better way. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so let's click on increment count. Okay, as you can see, it's incrementing the count. There you go. So why is this happening? Why are we incrementing? So what is happening internally that is making the count go up dynamically? It's not that the whole page is re-rendered. It's just that whatever is being changed, so what uh, all the states which are being changed, only that is being rendered. For example, let's have this. Upload. Hello, cool. Yeah, so every time you update or every time something is being updated, the whole component gets re-rendered. So that's one important characteristic of React. So that's what we need to keep in mind. And as we can see, so what is actually happening is that whenever I click on clicking, each click of the button triggers a re-render of the component, and this reflects the new state. So as you can see, when I click on increment count, which is this, it says on click, set the count to count plus 1. So it triggers this re-rendering of the component as because we're using a useState hook, and it increments the count by 1, which is this. And it displays the count here, the counter. And yeah, that's pretty much the basic React counter. And yeah, so this is pretty much the basics of what React is, what are the different, what is React, why we use React, and what are the different features of React, and a basic overview of how to set up the environment, how to set up a basic project of React, and how do we create a simple counter application for React. So this should have given you a basic idea of what React is. And yeah, for any additional knowledge or information that you need to gather, you can get it through this particular domain called react.dev. It is maintained by Facebook, and it's a community, it's an open source uh, portal where you can understand, you can learn, and it has a community, it has blogs where you can have extensive data, and it's a treasure trove of knowledge of React. So I believe you have understood the basics of React, and yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.